Hello and welcome to the Rask Network. What you're about to hear and see is limited to general financial information only. Please be sure to speak to your financial planner or refer to our financial services guide available at rask.com.au/FSG before acting on the information.
Jordan, welcome back to this episode of the Australian Business Podcast.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
It's always good to chat, and particularly when we're talking marketing, which is probably like the number one thing that folks have trouble with, whether they're an online business or in person. They say, can you get me more leads? And we are back again, joined by Zara. How are you going?
Good. Yeah.
Well, after your first show, we thought we'd have to have you back for number 2 because we promised folks, but also because you were so good. So for anyone that hasn't listened to the first one, which is where we went over marketing strategy, the basic nuts and bolts of marketing at large for a small business, whether you're new or existing. In this episode, we're going to talk about email marketing because it is so important, or at least we think it is. Let's start with the basics, Zara. What is email marketing? Why is it so effective?
So many reasons. So email marketing, there's a lot of different ways that you can set it up and run it. I think the biggest thing is that if it's set up correctly and you have automation or email marketing flows, like a welcome series, for example, it then becomes a passive revenue stream for your business. But I think another really important part is looking at it's an owned audience. So like when someone joins your database, you own that data. You will always have access to that customer profile. So if they buy something from you, which I guess leading into the second part is then looking at segmentation and tailoring emails and making sure that you can have really personalized communication channels with your customer base.
Mm-hmm. I also love it because it feels like it's more business focused, as in like you go into your email address, into your email user, you log in, you've got like, say, Gmail, whatever, and you can see all the messages from businesses. Whereas if I go into like my Instagram and I go to my messages, it's just all my mates sending me just random crap, funny videos that they've seen online.
Yeah.
And so the actual feel of it is very different.
For sure. So Zara, could you explain the concept of an email marketing funnel?
I think when we're looking at the top of the funnel for an email marketing kind of platform, we're looking at that initial wave that we can engage with that customer base. So it could be through your creative. So maybe you're running paid advertising and you're doing lead generation, for example. And so you're directing people to a database to sign up. It could be for a business audit. It could be for a quote for a plumbing service. It could be that maybe you're an e-commerce business and you're running a giveaway on a social media giveaway online. And so you're directing people to sign up to your email database so that they can win something. So you're looking at like different landing pages. You're looking at, using social media, having like your link in your bio. So it's that first touch point that you have with customers. And I guess the really great thing about that is that people are entering into that voluntarily as well, which is again kind of feeding into that organic way of building an audience and connecting with an audience, is that it's an organic channel and people are voluntarily wanting to be involved with you and your business. I guess then looking at like email marketing as like from a profitability perspective, it's one of the top converting platforms and it's one of the top converting ways to, particularly for e-commerce, it's one of the top kind of platforms that you can be generating revenue from. But then kind of once I guess you've got people in that email marketing database, it's then looking at like segmentation and tailoring. So putting people into certain lists, and there's so many ways that you can do it. We could have an entire different podcast on how to actually segment and put people into those lists. But I think coming into 2024, having that personalized piece of communication with businesses or with clients, customers is super important so that you can be sending them, if they've purchased, maybe you sell car parts online and they bought something for their Holden, then the next conversation or the next piece of communication that you can be having with them is for an upsell for another a gauge for their Holden car or something like that.
Yeah.
So that you're not just sending them something to do with a Toyota and it doesn't make sense. So it's making sure that every touch point you're having with them is based on a previous touch point that you've had with them, which then helps to build that trust. It helps to build that relationship, which then obviously builds your brand equity with that person as well.
Mm. In terms of like the best practices around emails, there's been a lot that's changed in recent years in terms of like even just recently, DMARC, which is, well, a lot of things people probably aren't familiar with, but it's just like the way people receive emails and the verification because of spoofing and all that. A lot of it's changed. So in terms of like best practice for business owners, what should they know?
Yeah, so I guess particularly on what you've just said in terms of DMARC and setting up your domain authority and your sender authority, that's super important. And it's just so that customers like us, when we open our email platform, we open Gmail, it's that we're getting kind of not spammed, essentially. So it really is for the benefit of the customer. And as a business, you really want to be aligning to whatever those guidelines are. So that's kind of a really important thing at the moment. But I think split testing is super important. So looking at different headlines, different subject lines, looking at like the design of your email itself, where are your call to action buttons, where are your shop now, where are your inquire now buttons on that kind of design, and split testing that. So sending out one email that the subject line is a question versus the subject line's a statement, and then understanding, okay, well, is that open rate better with a question or is it better with a statement? And then if we're kind of taking that data and we're saying, okay, well, every time I put a question in my subject line, my open rate goes up. Okay, well, moving forward, we know that's kind of how our customer likes to be engaged with. And then kind of stepping down to that next kind of part, when we're looking at the design and that click rate. So once we've kind of got people to open the email, okay, how can we get people to click on that email, and what's the best practice for our business? Because it really does differ for different businesses and industries. So it's looking internally at our own business. It works better when we have, our shop now button at the top, or we have like a GIF, or we have like a creative of some sort, depending on kind of what that looks like. And then I think having the most important information at the top. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a skim reader. Good luck if you ever send me anything, I'll never read the whole thing. So having that most important information at the top of the email, so that if someone just wants to go in, understand what it is, they can kind of get that information straight away. Yeah,
I love that. I'm guilty of sending long messages and emails. Anyone that's received one of our emails will know this. So you've been setting up the Inflection marketing side of the business, but you've also been doing our marketing for Inflection and across all the businesses. When it comes to, say, personalization of email marketing, how do you think about that? Because you and I had a bit of a little chat about this the other day, in terms of the different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
Some people say super casual, some say super professional. What do you think?
Again, I think it really depends on your audience, on your industry. It depends on the type of communication and what you're sending out as well. So, for example, if you're sending like a welcome series or an onboarding series, if you're an e-com business, people are signing up because typically you would have a discount, you would have a welcome offer in there. But if you're trying to win back customers, maybe they have purchased from you before, or maybe they've used one of your services before. Maybe you installed a hot water system for them, and then you kind of want to do a check-in, or you want to get them back. Maybe that more personalized, like an SMS, like using SMS marketing, or looking at like a more personalized one-to-one style email is probably going to convert at a better rate. But again, I think going back to always split testing, always trialing both, seeing what works with your audience, because your audience is different to the business that's sitting next to you,
Yeah, cool. On that example with the SMS marketing, what are some of the tools and the software recommendations you have?
Yeah, I mean, Klaviyo is my favorite, absolute favorite, for service-based, for e-commerce, kind of anything, for so many reasons. It can be a little bit more on the pricier side in terms of the software, but in terms of its capabilities, just kind of second to none. They've got a training academy as well that if you're new to the platform, for new business owners, if you haven't used the platform before, incredible training and support staff. But I think in terms of being able to really hyper segment your audience and really going back to that tailored communication to build those relationships, Klaviyo is just kind of like second to none, in my opinion.
Does it do SMS as well?
Yes, it does.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So let's just, we could go on the next thing for 100 years, but then it'll probably something that AI will have taken over and it won't mean anything anyway. But how can businesses who really want to tap into email, how can they start building their email list? Like, what can they do?
Great question. I think looking at an organic side of things, if we're starting there and we're thinking about small businesses, if we're starting with potentially like a social giveaway and encouraging people to sign up to the database so that they can win, a collaboration prize with you and a bunch of other businesses that offer a similar product or work in a similar industry. I think that's a really great place to start. It helps build social proof as well at the same time, because you're probably getting people engaging on your content and following your social media profile, as well as signing up to your email database. So you're kind of getting a couple of things all in that one package. And then offering something. Like, people want things for free. Yeah.
Don't we all?
Don't we all? So, lean into that, and it also de-risks that first interaction or that first transaction that a customer has with you. If they know that they can get a free audit on their in-house plumbing system, for example, maybe they're looking at water filters and they don't know how much it's going to cost or what that looks like for their house, they can get that plumber to come out and do a quote for them, and that's all for free, no obligations. It helps to reduce the risk involved.
Just on that, does that form part of the overall marketing strategy, that list maintenance?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
Got to say, like, the give, take, I think it is. How many gives, I don't know. But that idea of, like, permission marketing,
yes,
which was written about by Seth Godin, is really important, I think, is like giving away something in exchange for an email address or a phone number or contact information is so powerful. Yeah. So that's kind of like how to build and maintain a healthy email list. But what about in terms of like the legalities around this? Like, there are certain things that apply to email marketing.
Yeah.
What would you say what should people be aware of?
Number one would be an unsubscribe link, so that if someone has at some point joined your database for that welcome discount, for example, you're a women's fashion brand, you give 15% off their first purchase. Maybe they joined, they got their 15% off discount, and then they didn't want to be a part of that database anymore. They need to be able to unsubscribe super easily. So having that link at the top of the email is kind of best practice. Privacy policy, so people can understand where their data is being used, that's something that they can access really easily. And if you're using systems like Klaviyo, they have an automated essentially message down the bottom that will say, you're receiving this message because you joined this business or this list or this giveaway. So it kind of helps to contextualize all of it for the customers. But I think it's just, again, going back to privacy and kind of what's coming up in 2024, it's really making sure that when we are utilizing customers' data, it's in the most ethical way possible. And then if they don't want to be a part of it, making it really super easy for them to opt out.
Cool. And how do you measure the success of an email marketing campaign?
Good question. I think there's kind of three core metrics that you look at. One of them is your open rate. So again, how many emails you're sending versus how many people are opening that. And that's looking at things like your subject header in terms of, is it a question or is it a statement, and how often are people opening it, and is it improving either way? And then kind of once people have opened it, looking at that click-through rate. So then we're looking at the amount of people that have opened that email versus the amount of people that have clicked on a button in that email and ended up on your website or, a landing page or whatever that kind of destination looks like. And then if you're an e-commerce business, obviously we're looking at revenue. Again, kind of the biggest thing with email marketing is that it can become a really passive revenue stream for your business if it's set up correctly. And obviously the effort goes into that initial setup. But once it's set up, it's something that just runs in the background and makes money for you. So you can focus on other areas of your business. And that's kind of the core goal with email marketing, is it becomes this passive revenue stream. And then going back to kind of like a 3, 6, 12-month marketing plan, making sure that what we're communicating throughout those kind of periods, whether it be whatever that marketing cadence is, whether we're emailing people twice a month, that we're kind of generating revenue as well. Because anything that we're doing, particularly for small business, any business, but particularly for small business, when you're in such a vulnerable place, you really want to make sure that all of your efforts are generating revenue, essentially.
For sure. So there's a lot to go on with email marketing. Like, basically the entire Rask business is built up email marketing. It's people think that podcasts are what has defined our business, and maybe they have for some people from someone's perspective. But people don't maybe know this, but there's no doubt in my mind that the only reason that Rask has grown to how big it is because of the email marketing.
Cool.
How and I've seen it work with hundreds of businesses hyper effectively. Can you tell us a little bit of, like, can you give us like in maybe like a minute or 90 seconds, can you give us like a crash course on how to do it effectively?
Personalization is key. Making sure that we're communicating with people the way that they want to be communicated with. So using those, that segmentation that we spoke about a little bit earlier, how can we be making sure that those relationships that we're building with people are adding value? Any kind of email communication that you're sending out, you want to be adding value to people. So if you're just kind of sending out an email for the sake of it because you said you were going to send 2 emails this month, probably not a good enough reason. I'd probably hit pause on that and wait until, you've got a new collection launch or you're offering a new service. Essentially any piece of communication that has to be adding value to someone.
That's a really good way to think about it. I love that, actually. Yeah. We had a lot of unsubscribes last year, by the way, just in case anyone was wondering.
There you go. Because you don't use Klaviyo.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I should have known Zara before.
Yeah, exactly.
I decided to set up a business many years ago.
Exactly. Zara, something a bit left field, but for email marketing, do you think that can also be used outside of the sales space? So like for like client onboarding, stuff like that?
Yeah.
I'm asking you this selfishly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think outside of sales, it can be a really great way to educate and nurture customers before you're even kind of trying to get them onto a service. Or, if you're an accountant, before trying to get them on your books, it's about giving them free accounting tips. You're coming into tax time. Here's the 3 top tips you need to know as a small business owner to save you tax this year. And what value can you be adding to those people? What education can you be providing? It only puts you in a better light as well, because it just kind of shows your expertise.
For sure. Just thinking in my head, segmentation, how that would work. So
what were you thinking of?
Just like mainly the segmentation of having different, I'm just relating to my business again, selfishly, but like we have business clients, we have individual clients, and how you can separate them. Even if new clients were to come on board, as accountants, we have to gather a lot of information, and there's a few steps that need to be done. And I'm just like thinking, can that be automated through email marketing? So maybe off the air chat. Come to the office and we can go through it promptly. What are some common email marketing mistakes that businesses should avoid?
Not optimizing for mobile is number one. I think the open rates on mobile versus desktop is like over 80%. And that just essentially means that when you are designing your email, you're, instead of designing it on the desktop version of your email marketing software, it's designing it on the mobile version of your email marketing software. And so it just means that from that very first kind of way that you're trying to design that email in terms of that communication, what that information hierarchy looks like, where you're putting that piece of text, where you're putting that call to action button, how much text you're putting in there. Because obviously, again, going back to skim readers and going back to, no one wants to scroll and scroll and scroll forever on a piece of email communication. So how can you kind of be condensing that for mobile is kind of the number one thing. And I think it's the one thing that I see a lot of business owners miss out on. And it can just mean that sometimes the image placement is really off. And what that can do to the perception of your business as well. It can really take away from that brand equity that you're trying to build. And then I think the other thing is not reviewing your analytics and your data. And so looking at that email marketing software, but also looking at things like, if you're on Shopify or WooCommerce, what's your best selling product? What's your highest converting product? And then looking at Google Analytics, if that's something you should have installed. All businesses should have.
Yeah.
But, again, how can we be utilizing data in making these decisions so that that piece of communication that we're sending out is not only super valuable to the customer, but it's also likely to be the highest converting piece of communication that we can be sending out as well.
I still can't believe it when some businesses don't use Google Analytics. Like when they've got like a website or an app or something, they're not using Google Analytics to track that. It just, they've got like Monster Insights or some other thing. No offense to Monster Insights, but it's not near as good as Google Analytics. I just cannot believe that every time I look at it, I'm like.
I think it's also Google as a platform as well, whether it be Google Ads or Analytics, has such a great like education academy as well. So again, for business owners, going back to like ways that we can educate ourselves, it's looking at those kind of systems and platforms that already exist, those resources that are out there to help you also understand Google Analytics and what you're looking at so you can use that data yourself.
Absolutely. So we've got one more question, but I'll just recap some of these things, which is that you've got the email marketing can be a passive form of income for business owners, which is probably what people don't really think about. But it's just a wonderful thing for retargeting, segmenting, all that sort of stuff. You own the data. You suggested, is it Klaviyo? Klaviyo, that's how
Yeah.
pronounce it, Klaviyo.
Well, I think we pronounce it Klaviyo, but it's an American software. So then kind of when I've had conversations, they say Klaviyo. So I think it's just part of my vernacular now is Klaviyo.
Yeah. Okay, so Klaviyo. Okay, it is Klaviyo. There are some things that every business owner should know, like open rates, click-through rates, and obviously just revenue that you get from your email. I think the thing around personalization is really important, and opening on a mobile device before you send the email is so important. For the month that we're running this marketing mini-series on the Australian Business Podcast, people can get in contact with you and book a call with you and do a strategy and for a significant discount. So if you do want to use Zara and her team's services in your business, please get in contact. You'll find a link in the show notes and below the video on YouTube. Final question for you was just around some of your tools. You've already mentioned Klaviyo. You can mention that again. But is there anything else that you would suggest any business owner that's listening to this to take a look at?
I think if you're designing emails yourselves, looking at platforms like Really Good Emails is just a really great place to start in terms of design inspiration. What some really big companies are using and how they're communicating and what that just visually what that design looks like. Because I think I know when I first started, one of the scariest things is looking at a blank email and being like, where do I start? What information should I put anywhere? What's important? And so just looking at what other people are doing.
Yeah, I really like that. Just imitate, right?
Imitate, totally. Yeah, you don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, cool. I like it. Simple way to end the show. Let's just heap of fun. In the next episode, we'll talk about paid versus organic advertising or marketing. Such an important topic. A lot of folks just do one or the other, but maybe it's a bit of both. So we'll talk about that in the next session. Zara, thanks for joining Jordan and I.
Always a pleasure.
Jordan, pleasure, mate.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for watching this video on the Rask Network. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get videos each and every day on business, finance, investing, and so much more.